Tale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Eti Namine.
Yes, please go on. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Nam.
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine
Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Asatya
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare
Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai, Shri Prabhupada ki Jai. Om Gyan Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamsya Nama Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratvashe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaur Bhakta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna. Can we revise a few points from yesterday's discussions?
We discussed divine and demoniac qualities.
What's that?
We discussed divine and demoniac qualities. First three
Yes.
verses were about divine qualities, and the rest of the verses were about demoniac qualities.
Okay, that's right. Something more?
Quality having like no external or internalness. Demonian people could not accept the supreme personality.
What, somebody saying something or?
Yeah, demoniac people who do not accept the supreme personality, supreme spirit. According to them, even these things are matter.
Okay.
Yesterday we
By
talked about
practice
the
and
quality of
determination,
demons, quality of
one should try to develop divine characteristics. In material world, demoniac
Okay.
qualities you can get by default through mode of passion and ignorance.
Yes, that's correct.
Well, the divine qualities are conducive to liberation and demoniac qualities cause bondage.
Yes, good.
And their destinations will be different.
What will be different?
Destinations.
Destinations, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, who take shelter of kama lust believe that sense gratification is ultimate goal, and they treat anxiety until the end of life.
Yes, the result of demonic activities is anxiety. Okay, so on that point of anxiety, we have given you some homework to do. Anybody has found some time to answer those questions?
Hare Krishna.
Yes, anyone?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, I have some point for the second question. What is the difference between material anxiety and spiritual anxiety?
Okay.
Prabhuji, material anxiety is related to like attachments, desires, like envy from someone, and we are not getting this, that. But spiritual anxiety is that anxiety that we are not progressing in spirituality and we are not making Krishna happy.
Okay, good point. Yes.
That's it.
Somebody else?
The effects of anxiety levels, because of that, they remain attached to impure activities such as like drinking wine, eating meat, having illicit sex, and gambling. And in such intoxication levels, they commit violations of standard laws and are punished under criminal laws, and they suffer.
Okay, that's correct. So that's material anxieties.
Because of spiritual anxiety, we get more closer to Krishna, because we keep thinking, how can we please Krishna? How can I distribute books? So in that process, we tend to please Krishna and Guru.
Okay, good. Very good point. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes.
Material anxiety generally arises when we depend on our own endeavors,
right,
and we try to achieve something. And spiritual anxiety is mostly when we are depending on Krishna and we are surrendering unto him for completion of our devotional practice.
Okay.
One practical example what I wanted to share is very recently, because after COVID, our offices were opening. So I was having a lot of anxiety, like how things will be managed. And then our Bhakti Shastri was also about to start. So my office generally starts at 8:15, 8:30. So I thought, how will I attend? Somehow I left everything on Krishna, and office timings changed to 9:30.
Oh, really? Good.
So when we left everything on Krishna, and suddenly everything got relaxed, and I'm able to comfortably have appreciation of all the
good example, huh? Dependence on Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
When you have spiritual anxiety, your material anxiety will diminish gradually.
Okay, that's correct. Yes. Take anxiety for Krishna, then material anxiety should diminish. Yes.
Example of Prabhuji, one for spiritual anxiety is that an example of spiritual anxiety I want to share, Prabhu, is that
go ahead.
Sometimes we are frustrated that we are not getting time to read Srila Prabhupada's book. We should be able to chant more rounds. And so that anxiety is spiritual anxiety, which is good.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, good.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. In material anxiety, we completely forget that we are not the controller. We keep getting frustrated, and we want to solve the problem, and we get entangled more and more, and there is no way out of it, and all intelligence is lost.
But in spiritual anxiety?
In spiritual anxiety, when we take shelter of Krishna, that helps us in progress, and the main thing is we depend on Krishna there. We don't focus to depend on Krishna in spiritual anxiety.
Right, very good. Good points.
In material anxiety, we are unhappy and dissatisfied, whereas in spiritual anxiety, we progress in bhakti.
Yes, that's correct.
In material anxiety, we used to compare from others, while in spiritual anxiety, we not compare with others. We just want to achieve Krishna.
Yes, we want to please Krishna more and more. Good. Very good. Go ahead.
In material anxiety, we think that we are in control. It's because of our personal endeavor that we will be able to achieve this and that. And we think that this is it's up to my endeavor that how I can do it. Then depending on.
Yes, that's correct.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Materially speaking, we have both anxiety and relaxation. Both are anxiety only, and both relaxation and anxiety are bliss. Actually,
give some example.
Now we see materially people are relaxed, so they they have all their possessions and things like that and all. But it is a seed that is put in for anxiety. So every material comforts that comes, the same thing will give them anxiety later on. And
Correct.
either it is in the anxiety on the seed form or anxiety in the fructified form. But spiritually speaking, whether we are like happy having the darshan of the Lord, or meeting devotee, or like sad by not having the association of the devotee, or like being separated or something like that. Whatever may be the case, it's all bliss only.
Yes, yes, that's true.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So material.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, material anxiety will lead to more entanglement and more unhappiness, though it will give some satisfaction temporarily, but in long run it will give more entanglement. But spiritual anxiety initially could be little difficult because we are conditioned to some old activities, but gradually it will give more satisfaction and more closer to Krishna.
Okay, fine. Okay, those were good points on the difference between material and spiritual anxiety. And so we had a discussion on various demonic qualities and how, as one practices devotional service, then the demonic quality should reduce if one is sincere and serious in one's practice of devotional service. So we're going to the last section of the chapter from 1924, results of demoniac activities.
Prabhuji, do you want to take yesterday's questions now or after, once we are done with
at the end of this chapter?
All right, Prabhuji.
Okay, so 19th verse. Tanaham dvishata kruran samsareshu naradhaman kshipam yajasram ashubhan asurish eva yonishu. Those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men, I perpetually cast into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life. So this is what Krishna is saying he does with those who are Dvishita and Kruran. Those are envious of the Lord, envious of other living beings, and who are Kruran, cruel, and having all these demoniac qualities. Prabhupada is being quite liberal and in saying mischievous, not a very heavy word, but Kruran basically means very cruel. So for such people, what does Krishna do? Samsareshu naradhaman. So for such naradhamas, the lowest of mankind, what does Krishna do? Kshipami. I put them where? Ajasram, forever. Forever means a very long time. It doesn't mean eternal. But then as we discuss about Nitya Baddha like that. So for a very long time, because once one descends down into the lower species, then millions and millions of lower species, then when again a human form of life. So it's practically forever. But of course, we know it's not eternal. So they put into Asirishu Eva Yonishu, in the wombs of the demoniac species of life. Okay, read the purport.
Shweta Mataji.
Hare Krishna. In this verse, it is clearly indicated that the placing of particular individual soul in a particular body is the prerogative of the supreme will. The demoniac person may not agree to accept the supremacy of the Lord, and it is a fact that he may act according to his own whims. But his next birth will depend upon the decision of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and not on himself. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, it is stated that an individual soul after his death is put into the womb of a mother, where he gets a particular type of body under the supervision of superior power. Therefore, in the material existence, we find so many species of life, animals, insects, men, and so on. All are arranged by the superior power. They are not accidental. As for the demoniac, it is clearly said here that they are perpetually put into the wombs of demons, and thus they continue to be envious, the lowest of the mankind. Thus, demoniac species of men are held to be always full of lust, always violent and hateful, and always unclean. The many kinds of hunter in the jungle are considered to belong to the demoniac species of life.
Okay, so which species is decided by supreme will, higher powers, as the third canto explains. Karmana devanetrena jantur deho papatyate. So it's all happening by devanetrena, by supreme will, divine arrangements. So it's not happening accidentally, it's not happening by chance, but there is someone in control and he's awarding based upon the karma, different bodies, different species. Okay, 20. Asuram yonimapanna muda janmani janmani mam aprapyeva kamteya tato yantyadamam gatim. Attaining repeated birth amongst the species of demoniac life, O son of Kunti, such persons can never approach me. Gradually they sink down to the most abominable type of existence. Okay, so such asurim, yonim apanna, mudha. So Krishna is very upset with these demoniac people and is calling them mudha, very foolish. And janmani, birth after birth, they'll be put into these lower species. And aprapyamam, they can never achieve me, Krishna says. So again, we have to understand the same mood, that it's for a very, very long time. So that is why it's almost like very difficult for such jivas to once again achieve the Supreme Lord. It is not impossible. It is not impossible, but the possibility is very less. That is the meaning. So it's not that it's never possible. Definitely, at certain point of time, there is a good possibility they'll come to human species, and then in the human species, they fortunately get some association of devotees, take to devotional service. So when it's going to happen, it's totally unpredictable. And so therefore, it's practically like eternal, very, very long time. So therefore, that's the meaning of, like in the previous verse also, he said, ajasram, forever. Or here he says, mam aprapyeva. So that's the mood. So it's not impossible, but it's like very difficult or after a very long time. And they remain in adhamam gatim, the lower forms of life. So therefore, Prabhupada in the purport says, it is clearly stated that such demons have practically no chance. So you see Prabhupada is being very precise. He puts that word practically no chance. He doesn't say only no chance, but he says practically no chance. That means it's very difficult. The chance is very less. That is the meaning. No chance of receiving the mercy of God at any stage of later life. Gradually seem to become dogs and hogs. So it may be then argued in this connection that God should not be advertised as all merciful if he is not merciful to such demons. In answer to this question, the Vedanta Sutra, we find that the Supreme Lord has no hatred for anyone. We already discussed that, samam sarvabhuteshu. The placing of the asuras, the demons, in the lowest status of life is simply another feature of his mercy. Sometimes the asuras are killed by the Supreme Lord, but this killing is also good for them. Of course, if they're killed by the Supreme Lord, then that is special mercy. Very few, rare asuras get that mercy. But then, ultimately, it's for the mercy of the mischievous living entities, because then that's the punishment is what purifies them. That's Lord's mercy upon these envious living entities. So they're punished, and by that punishment, they get purified, and gradually evolution takes place. And that's how, once again, that they're given a chance to get a human life and possibly take up to devotional service. So ultimately, everything is the mercy of the Supreme Lord. So, so then the question could be asked, okay, so there are so many demoniac qualities. Arjuna may think, oh, Krishna gave such a big list of demoniac qualities. I'm supposed to control all of them? Okay, this is a commentary on the previous verse, the 20th verse. Anyway, here also is mentioning the point that these asuras, they are killed by the Supreme Lord and they achieve liberation if they're killed by the Supreme. Okay, fine. So then Krishna says, okay, there are a lot of demoniac qualities, but essentially try to control three. And so therefore he says this verse. Trividam narakasyedam dvaram nashanam kama krodastata lobas tasmadeta trayam tyajet. There are three gates leading to this hell: lust, anger, and greed. Every sane man should give these up, for they lead to the degradation of the soul. So Krishna says, okay, at least control these three, because they are the gates leading to hell. Kama, Krodhas, Tata, Lobhas. And of course, all the demoniac qualities are basically a result of these three. Everything else simply follows these three. These are the root causes of all the demoniac qualities. And so therefore Krishna says, you take care of these, then yes, the others will automatically be taken care of. As Prabhupada writes in the purport, the beginning of demoniac life is described here. One tries to satisfy his lust. This Krishna has already described in 3rd chapter. Kamesha, Krodesha, Rajoguna, Samudbhava, Mahashano, Mahapapma, Vidhi, Enamiva. So it all begins with Kama, Krodha. So one tries to satisfy his lust. When he cannot, anger and greed arise. A sane man who does not want to glide down to the species of demonic life must try to give up these three enemies which can kill the self to such an extent that no possibility of liberation from his mentality. So then if one controls these three, what is the result? Krishna explains in the next verse. Eter vimukta kaunteya tamodvares tribhi naraha acharit atmana shreyas tato yati param gatim. The man who has escaped these three gates of hell, O son of Kunti, performs acts conducive to self-realization and thus gradually attains the supreme destination. So if one controls these three tamodvares tribhi naraha, then the result will be that he gets the Shreya, the ultimate benediction of Param Gatim, the supreme destination. Please read the purport.
So that's what it is.
One should be very careful of these three enemies to human life: lust, anger, and greed. The more a person is freed from lust, anger, and greed, the more his existence becomes pure. Then he can follow the rules and regulations enjoined in the Vedic literature. By following the regulative principles of human life, one gradually raises himself to the platform of spiritual realization. If one is so fortunate by such practice to rise to the platform of Krishna consciousness, then success is guaranteed for him. In Vedic literature, the ways of action and reaction are prescribed to enable one to come to the stage of purification. The whole method is based on giving up lust, greed, and anger. By cultivating knowledge of this process, one can be elevated to the highest position of real self-realization. This self-realization is perfected in devotional service. In that devotional service, the liberation of the conditioned soul is guaranteed. Therefore, according to the Vedic system, there are instituted the 4 orders of life and 4 statuses of life, called the caste system of spiritual order of system. There are different rules and regulations for different castes and divisions of society. And if a person is able to follow them, he will be automatically raised to the highest platform of spiritual realization. Then he can have liberation without a doubt.
Yes. So here again, Prabhupada writes that by following the regulative principles of human life, one gradually raises himself to the platform of spiritualization. If one is so fortunate by such practice, so you see Prabhupada stresses on this practice again and again, to rise to the platform of Krishna consciousness, then success is guaranteed for him. So one has to practice giving up all these demonic qualities and developing the divine qualities. So, and then he talks about by cultivating knowledge. So, of course, previously in the 3rd chapter, Krishna has discussed how to control lust. So somebody remembers some points from the 3rd chapter, how to control lust? Yes?
So Krishna says that by
What?
by studying the mind by deliberate intelligence in Krishna consciousness.
Okay, studying the mind by deliberate intelligence. Okay, good points.
By purifying our senses by rendering by using our services in satisfying Krishna's senses.
Okay, good point. Yes, the lust resides in the senses. So therefore, by engaging all the senses in Krishna's service. Yes, that's correct.
Senses are easiest to engage, Prabhu. So in due course of time, mind will also be conquered.
Okay.
So, yeah, same point.
Yes.
By following 4 regulative principles.
Yes, the 4 regulative principles are, yes, basically to give up the sinful activities.
Param Tristva Nivartate, Prabhu.
Developing.
What is that?
Param Tristva Nivartate. If you give the higher taste than the whatever the material things, so
yes, that's also an important point. Developing a higher taste in Krishna consciousness, then it'd be possible to give up the lower material taste.
When we desire for to serve Krishna.
Yes, very important. Desire to serve Krishna, then the material desires will reduce. Okay, fine. So these are some of the ways how the lust can be controlled. Any ways how anger can be controlled?
By using the anger in Lord's service.
How?
Like Hanuman did.
Right, so that's one of the ways of controlling anger, by using anger in Lord's service. Any other ways of controlling anger?
By being satisfied with what one has, because
yes, that's true. One of the main causes of anger is when the karma is not satisfied. When the lust is not satisfied, it results in anger. So therefore, if one is satisfied with what one has, then the anger can be controlled. And how to control greed?
Again, the satisfaction too, like
yes,
of what we have.
Okay, by satisfaction, that's correct. Some other ways?
Developing spiritual greed.
Don't compare with others, basically. Then things will not come back in your mind.
Okay, if one compares with others, yes, then there'll be a lot of greed. Yes. So don't compare.
By not accumulating and rather giving more in charity.
Okay, by giving charity. But if one is greedy, how will give charity?
He has to start at some point.
Okay.
By thinking that everything is Krishna's property and I should not accumulate more than what is required.
Okay. Understand what is one's quota. Yes.
Greed starts with desire. And if
what?
More to surrender to lotus feet of Krishna, that way we can channelize greed.
Okay.
Not feeling enviousness.
What's that?
Yeah, not feeling enviousness.
Okay, not feeling envious, that's correct. And also by understanding the consequences of greed. Consequence of greed, consequence of accumulating money. If you study in the 7th canto, also in the 11th canto, there are these teachings of these Avadut Brahmanas in both the places where there's quite an elaborate description on the effects of greeds, right? So if one studies the effects of greed, accumulating money, then yes, then one will be able to give up greed. Yes, so these are some of the ways one can give up these 3 gates to hell.
One more point, Prabhuji, by understanding that we couldn't take anything with us. So,
Yes, that's true. Yes, good points. Yes, we have to leave everything here. Okay, fine. So finally, Krishna concludes by talking about the results of following the scriptures and the results of not following the scriptures, because right in the beginning, that definition was given. The asuras are those who don't follow, and the devas are those who follow. That's, if you remember that purport, I suppose in the 5th verse or the 6th verse. Prabhupada says that's the basic foundational difference between the divine and the demoniac. So the divine follow the scriptures, the demoniac don't follow the scriptures. And so now he's explaining the results. 23. Ya shastra vidam utsrija vartate kamakarataha na sa siddhim avapnoti na sukham na parangatim. He who discards scriptural injunctions and acts according to his own whims attains neither perfection nor happiness nor the supreme destination. So these are the results. 3 results of not following shastras. Ya shastra vidam utsrija. Utsrija means give up. So one gives up the shastras, and how does he act? Kamakarata, whimsically. So who cares for the shastras? Shastras may say so many things, but who cares? So when the kama is driving the person, so then the person doesn't care for any rules, regulations, authority. Well, I want to enjoy, that's it. But what is the result? The result is nasasiddham. He doesn't achieve perfection, he doesn't achieve happiness, nor does he achieve the supreme destination. Read the purport, please.
Sham Chaitanya Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, as described before, the Shastra Vidhi or the direction of the Shastra is given to the different castes and orders of human society. Everyone is expected to follow these rules and regulations. If one does not follow them and acts whimsically according to his lust, greed, and desire, then he never will be perfect in his life. In other words, a man may theoretically know all these things, but if he does not apply them in his own life, then he is to be known as the lowest of mankind. In the human form of life, a living entity is expected to be sane and to follow the regulations given for the elevating his life to the highest platform. But if he does not follow them, then he degrades himself. But even if he follows the rules and regulations and moral principles and ultimately does not come to the stage of understanding the Supreme Lord, then all his knowledge becomes spoiled. And even if he accepts the existence of God, if he does not engage himself in the service of the Lord, his attempts are spoiled. Therefore, one should gradually raise himself to the platform of Krishna consciousness and devotional service. It is then and there that he can attain the highest perfectional stage, not otherwise. The word kama karadaha is very significant. A person who knowingly violates the rules, acts in lust, he knows that this is forbidden, but still he acts. This is called acting whimsically. He knows that this should be done, but still he does not do it. Therefore, he is called whimsical. Such persons are destined to be condemned by the Supreme Lord. Such persons cannot have the perfection which is meant for the human life. The human life is especially meant for purifying one's existence, and one who does not follow the rules and regulations cannot purify himself, nor can he attain the real stage of happiness. Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you. So here, Srila Prabhupada is writing some important points. Just one second. So here, Prabhupada is writing that everyone is expected to follow these rules and regulations. If one does not follow them and acts whimsically according to his lust, greed, and desire, then he never will be perfect in his life. In other words, a man may theoretically know all these things, but if he does not apply them in his own life, then he is to be known as the lowest of mankind. And then he says, in the human form of life, a living entity is expected to be sane and to follow the regulations given for elevating his life to the highest perfection. But if he does not follow them, then he degrades himself. So Prabhupada in his lectures very often explained that rules and regulations are meant for human beings. Animals don't need to follow rules and regulations. Prabhupada's famous example that just like if the cats and dogs don't follow the traffic laws, then the cats and dogs are not fined. They go anywhere on the road and who cares? But human beings, if they don't follow, then there is fine and all punishments. So, therefore, rules and regulations are meant for human beings. Why only for human beings? Because human life is a life of responsibility. Srila Prabhupada explains that in the Ishopanishad. Therefore, he gives the example that just like a high court judge, he's given better facilities. He may have a bigger house, a car, and things like that. And there may be a clerk working in the same court office, but then he doesn't have much facilities. Why? Because the judge is performing is a life of responsibility. He's performing duties of a greater responsibility. And so similarly, the human beings have been given the facility of a better intelligence and better facilities to do so many things. Why? Because the human life is meant for a greater responsibility. And what is that responsibility? To understand the scriptures, to understand the rules and regulations. And if one doesn't do that, then one is just being irresponsible like the animals. Then it's just animalistic life. Then one gets the same results like the animals. So then anything that's misused, then it is taken away. So one has been given, as Prabhupada said so many times, the precious human life. But if one misuses that, then the facility is taken away. Okay, you want to act like animals, then become animals. Then no rules and regulations. Then no punishment also. No problem. Don't follow any rules and regulations. Do what you like, and no reactions. So then that's what happens. So therefore, the Shastras again and again are telling us the importance of the human form of life. As Narottam Das Thakur has sung, Hari Hari Bifale Janama Gunainu Radha Krishna Na Bhajiya Janiya Shuniya Vishakhain. So if one is, after receiving this human form of life, Manushya Janma Paya, Radha Krishna Na Bhajiya. Even after achieving the human form of life, if one does not use that to worship the Supreme Lord, then one is willingly drinking poison. So if somebody is poisoned, it's a different story. But willingly drinking poison, it's foolishness. So that's what one is doing. If one is not following the rules and regulations of the scriptures, performing devotional service. And so therefore, Prabhupada writes here, so a living entity is expected to be sane in the human form of life. So that's sanity. So if one is not following rules and regulations, human being is like insane. He's mad. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's ruining himself. That's what the verse is saying. Na siddhim avapnoti na sukham na paramgatim. So he's thinking that by not following rules and regulations, he's going to be sukha, he's going to be happy. But the fact is, no, by not following rules and regulations, that's the illusion of Maya. The illusion of Maya is that the living entity, the human being thinks that, oh, the rules and regulations, so much bondage. But then, by not following the rules and regulations, there's bigger bondage. The three modes, they totally mind the living entity and keep the living entity in the material world, and so much of suffering. So in illusion, one thinks that, oh, I don't follow rules and regulations, I'm happy, I'm free. But then Prabhupada gives the example, it's just like the freedom of the criminal who's dunked within water and brought up for a few seconds. It's just like that. And so Prabhupada makes this important point that a man may theoretically know all these things, but if he does not apply them, is lost of mankind. So therefore, the study of the scriptures, so some people know scriptures. We have discussed this point also in previous discussions. So there's no dearth of scholars in this world. There are people who know the scriptures, who know what is good, what is bad. But in practical application, zero. Previous discussions, we give examples of Mayavadis who may talk on the scriptures, big lectures, thousands of followers, but no following. That's even worse. So after knowing what is right and what is wrong, still not following, that is worse. So therefore, once at the end of a class, somebody asked Srila Prabhupada, what if after initiation, one is not able to follow the regulative principles? Prabhupada's immediate, spontaneous answer was, he's an animal. And then he says, why? Because there's no determination. Only an animal has no determination. So a human being, especially if he has taken vows in front of the spiritual master, the deities, the fire, the Vaishnavas, and in spite of all that, he doesn't follow, then he's an animal. No determination. So animals don't have determination. They just follow instincts. They're just governed by nature's laws. But human being has intelligence to decide what to do and what not to do. If he doesn't use that discriminatory power, then he's as good as an animal. And then, of course, Prabhupada says, oh, then why did he first of all get initiated? if he didn't want to follow, if he was incapable of following? Why did he get initiated in the first place? So it is serious business. Human life itself is serious business, and what to speak after initiation. So therefore, one has to understand all this as human beings. And then Prabhupada goes one step ahead and he says, but even if he follows the rules and regulations and moral principles and ultimately does not come to the stage of understanding the Supreme Lord, then all his knowledge becomes spoiled. So somebody is following something. So we have the other transcendentalists, maybe jnanis, yogis, they're following some rules and regulations. But ultimately they don't come to the understanding of the Supreme Lord. So then that also is useless. And then one step, so Prabhupada is sort of giving various options and he's slowly rising up different levels. And then so he's rising one level higher. And then he says, even if he accepts the existence of God, if he does not engage himself in the service of the Lord, his attempts are spoiled. So the jnanis and yogis don't know who is God. Okay, then somebody knows who is God, but he does not perform devotional service. So that's what we were talking about, devotees. Okay, there are devotees. They know who is God. They know what is to be done. So it's unfortunate, but it's a fact. Initiated devotees. But then, no chanting of 16 rounds, no properly following the principles. So then they fall in this category. They know the existence of God, but they don't follow. They don't practice. So then that's also useless. So therefore, Prabhupada says, therefore one should gradually raise himself to the platform of Krishna consciousness and devotional service. It is then and there that he can attain the highest perfectional stage, not otherwise. And then he's explaining what is the meaning of kamakarata. So kamakarata means a person who knowingly violates the rules, acts in lust. He knows that this is forbidden, but still he acts. This is called acting whimsically. He knows this should be done. Still he does it. So such persons are destined to be condemned by the Supreme Lord. Okay, so in spite of knowing if one does the wrong things, then that's even worse. Then that is knowingly violating the rules and regulations. Of course, ignorance of law is no excuse, as Prabhupada very often gave the example of. Even the ignorant child puts his finger in fire, the fire is going to burn anyways. So ignorance of law is no excuse, but if even after knowing if one does not follow, then that's worse. Therefore, Prabhupada concludes by saying the human life is especially meant for purifying one's existence, and one who does not follow the rules and regulations cannot purify himself, nor can he attain the real stage of happiness. Okay, so those are the results of not following. And what are the results of following? The last verse. Tasmat shastram pramanam te karya karya vyavastito gyatva shastra vidanoktam karma kartum miharasi. One should therefore understand what is duty and what is not duty by the regulations of the scriptures. Knowing such rules and regulations, one should act so that he may gradually be elevated. So tasma, therefore, understanding the consequences of not following, as told in the previous verse, therefore, shastram pramanam. So therefore, one must know what is the shastra praman, what are the injunctions, rules and regulations told in the scriptures, and then one must know what is karya, what is akarya, what is to be done, what is one's duty, what is forbidden. So one must know all this. So therefore, very important for us to read Shastra. As we said, ignorance of law is no excuse. But not that, oh, what to do, I didn't know that. No, that's not for human beings. That's what Prabhupada says, just like if one is driving on the right side of the road in India, and the policeman catches and he says, "Oh, I just returned from the US, I didn't know." No, he'll be punished. He'll be fined. Ignorance of law is no excuse. So similarly, if one doesn't read the Shastras, if one doesn't read Srila Prabhupada's books, and one does not know what Srila Prabhupada expected of us, what is to be done, what is not to be done, that's no excuse. As human beings, one is supposed to know what is karya, what is akarya, what is to be done, what is forbidden. One is supposed to know. And therefore, gyatva, knowing Shastra Vidhanokta, the Shastra Vidhan. So we have Vidhan Sabha, so the place where Vidhan, the rules and regulations are made. So similarly, Shastra Vidhan, so one should know the rules and regulations of the Shastra, and then one should act accordingly. Karma kartum ihats. Okay, read the purport. Prabhupada is sort of summarizing.
Shrikant Srinath Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. As stated in the 15th chapter, all the rules and regulations of the Vedas are meant for knowing Krishna. If one understands Krishna from the Bhagavad Gita and becomes situated in Krishna consciousness, engaging himself in devotional service, he has reached the highest perfection of knowledge offered by the Vedic literature. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made this process very easy. He asked people simply to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and to engage in the devotional service of the Lord and eat the remnants of foodstuff offered to the deity. One who is directly engaged in all these devotional activities is to be understood as having studied all Vedic literature. He has come to the conclusion perfectly. Of course, for the ordinary persons who are not in Krishna consciousness or who are not engaged in devotional service, what is to be done and what is not to be done must be decided by the injunctions of the Vedas. One should act accordingly without argument. That is called following the principles of Shastra or scripture. Shastra is without the four principal defects that are visible in the conditioned soul. Imperfect senses, the propensity for cheating, certainty of committing mistakes, and certainty of being illusion. These four principal defects in conditioned life disqualify one from putting forth rules and regulation. Therefore, the rules and regulation as described in the Shastra being above these defects are accepted without alteration by all great saints, acharyas, and great souls. In India, there are many parties of spiritual understanding, generally classified as two, the impersonalist and the personalist. Both of them, however, lead their life according to the principles of Vedas. Without following the principles of scriptures, one cannot elevate himself to the perfectional stage. One who actually, therefore, understands the purport of the Shastras is considered fortunate. In human society, aversion to the principles of understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of all fall downs. That is the greatest offense of human life. Therefore, Maya, the material energy of Supreme Personality of Godhead, is always giving us trouble in the shape of the threefold miseries. The material energy is constituted of the three modes of material nature. One has to raise himself at least to the mode of goodness before the path to understanding the Supreme Lord can be opened. Without raising oneself to the standard of mode of goodness, one remains in ignorance and passion, which are the cause of demonic life. Those in the modes of passion and ignorance deride the scriptures, deride the holy man, and deride the proper understanding of Supreme Personality of Godhead. They disobey the instructions of the spiritual master and they do not care for the regulations of the scriptures. In spite of hearing the glories of devotional service, they are not attracted. Thus, they manufacture their own way of elevation. They are some of the they are some of the defects of human society. These are some of the defects of human society which lead to the demonic status of life. If, however, one is able to be guided by a proper and bona fide spiritual master who can lead one to the path of elevation to the higher stage, then one's life becomes successful. That's the end of Bhaktivedanta purport to the 16th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of the divine and demonic natures.
Okay, fine. Thank you. So yes, so that's like a summary. So therefore, one should follow the rules and regulations of the scriptures under the guidance of the bona fide spiritual master, and that's how one can be elevated to perfection. Okay, fine. So that's the end of the 16th chapter. Okay, a lecture by Srila Prabhupada. Okay, this is from the 17th chapter. But anyways, you can read it.
Abhay Anand Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. One has to come to the platform of Sattva Guna. Without coming to the platform of Sattva Guna, nobody can advance in spiritual life. That is a fact, just like nobody is allowed to enter the law college unless he is graduate. This restriction is there. What he will understand law? He must be a graduate. So simply, first of all, similarly, first of all, one has to come to the platform of Satuguna. Then spiritual knowledge begins, because spiritual knowledge is above Satuguna, above Satguna. So Satuguna is the best quality when one brain is clear and he can see things as they are, no hazy understanding, but clear understanding.
Yes, so Sattva is the most conducive platform to come to devotional service. Okay. Okay, another lecture by Srila Prabhupada, read.
Hare Anand Prabhuji.
So those godly characteristics are there. Either you practice yourself to come to the godly characteristics, or there is a simple method. If you take to devotional service, all the godly qualities automatically come. This is the process. So in this age, to develop these godly qualities is very difficult. But if you take to Krishna consciousness by the simple method, by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, then automatically you develop all the godly qualities.
So of course, by the practice of devotional service, yasyasti bhaktir bhagavata kinchana sarver gunai sattu samasati suru. But then again, because our practice of devotional service is not so intense, so therefore some practice to develop the qualities also is required. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, so any questions?
Yes, Prabhuji. So from last day there are 4 questions, and today I think around 4 questions again. Yesterday's questions I posted, Prabhuji. They'll be there in the beginning of the chat. First one is by Nishant Prabhuji.
This one, Bhishma.
Yes, Prabhuji, that one.
Bhishma was leading army supporting adharma. How to understand if he had divine? Of course, Bhishma was a pure devotee. He was only playing a role. So Krishna wanted to show that however powerful, if he takes the side of adharma, then he's going to be vanquished. From a material viewpoint, of course, Bhishma was taking the side of the Kauravas because he thought they are maintaining him. So Duryodhana was maintaining him. That was an external material reason. But the main reason is Krishna wanted to show. And also, Bhishma had that Viriras, chivalrous ras with Krishna, and so therefore he wanted to be on the opposite party. So these are some of the reasons. Of course, as far as Bhishma is concerned, he's a pure devotee. Okay? Fine. Says 2 created beings, meaning demoniac also created. No, it is based on desire to be demoniac. Yes, everyone has a demoniac desire to enjoy the material world. That is demoniac desire. Therefore, they're sent into this material world. So originally, of course, originally everyone is pure, but then one develops the impure desire, and then one is sent to the material world, and then so many other demoniac desires develop. So it's based on that one demoniac desire, that is to enjoy independent of the Lord. Okay. Okay. What is the switching off the fan? Just chant 16 rounds, follow, or not doing anything material, 24 hours fully engaged. Yes, so switching off the fan means practicing devotional service, basically. So, Vedi Sadhana Bhakti. So, we can't expect to be on the Siddha platform, perfected platform immediately. So, yes, so as long as one is on the Vedi Sadhana platform, then yes, one is trying. Sometimes one is successful, sometimes one is not successful. But as long as one is following the basic process, then one will gradually get purified. So, definitely there are going to be anarthas and there are going to be problems, but then one should try to overcome them by proper guidance and then gradually make progress. So that's the basic process of Vedi Sadhana Bhakti. So one is at a certain level, but then one should gradually try to make progress. So we can't expect to be all of a sudden pure devotees, purified devotees with no anarthas. No, it's going to take some time. We just have to stick on to following the process. Is it okay?
Yes, Prabhu.
Oh. Vritrasura was internally divine, external demoniac. Those are exceptions. Vritrasura was Chitraketu Maharaj, cursed by Parvati, and that is also an arrangement of the Lord so that he comes back to the spiritual world. So that's all Lord's arrangement. That is Vritrasura's case. That's exceptional. But of course, who is divine, who is demoniac is not based on external features. So somebody could be dressed up very nicely, gentlemanly behavior, all that may be there, but at the same time he's eating hog's intestines. Huh? So what's he? He's divine or demoniac? So it's not based on externals, it's based on internal. So therefore, it's all based on what's the qualities, what is the lakshanam, what are the qualities. That's what is most important. We see in Mahabharata during Vanvas, the Pandavas get attracted to women and beget childs. Yeah, so this is Kshatriya Dharma. This is Kshatriya Dharma. And so especially if a lady approaches, then they can't refuse. In the case of Bhima, he was approached by this Hidimba, and so then he consulted Yudhishthira, and Yudhishthira said, no, you must accept. So like that. And they're Kshatriyas, so Kshatriya Dharma, so they can marry more than one wife, and of course they maintain them and satisfy them, and so that's all allowed for Kshatriyas. It doesn't mean that they're lusty, but they're just trying to perform their duties as Kshatriyas, that's all. And of course, as far as Pandavas are concerned, we know 100% they're pure devotees. There's no doubt about that. Okay, demonic people sing down their own time of existence, but they don't remember those things in the next life. No, because they go down into the lower species of life, and then lower species of life means so much of suffering. And the suffering is what purifies them. It's punishment. The punishment is what purifies them, and then gradually they get elevated to human form after millions and millions of lives. And so that's how they get purified, by all the suffering in the lower species. And then once again they come to human life, then they have a chance to once again understand All right. What can cause fall down of even initiated devotees? There's one to say it very precisely. At one place, Srila Prabhupada said, because they don't love Krishna. That's the reason Prabhupada gives. If devotees are not following, there's only one reason, because they don't love Krishna, or they're not even trying to love Krishna. So then who cares? Then who cares? Then do what you want. So there could be so many reasons. That's the root cause. And there could be so many intermediate causes. Anyway, we can't get into that detailed discussion. But that's the basic cause. Krishna here is referring to Vedic supreme junctions in one mechanics. Yes, so whoever is not properly following the goal of the Vedas and coming to Krishna consciousness is being condemned. That's correct. So that's why Prabhupada explains all that in his purport. So even if one knows the Vedic injunctions, of course, if they know the Vedic injunctions, they're following something, they'll make gradual progress. But then ultimately the goal is, Vedasi sarve rahame vedya, the goal is to come to Krishna consciousness. So they're making gradual progress towards Krishna, but they come to Krishna, then it's good. Are asuras and suras also? Yes. I heard that good and bad reactions has to undergo each jiva. Then where is the role of atonement? Yes. So atonement is what? Atonement is also following some Shastric injunctions of Karmakand. So Karmakand is saying, okay, you have committed this sinful activity, so you perform this vrata, you fast for so many days, worship this devata, do this, do that. So it is some austerity, some penance. So there is some penance which is according to the scriptures. So that's how the suffering gets nullified, because there is another suffering. He's undergoing suffering, voluntarily undergoing suffering. He's voluntarily undergoing suffering by taking up some process which is prescribed in the scriptures. So then the future suffering gets nullified. So that's how atonement works. Okay? All right?
Yes, Prabhuji, we are done with the question.
Okay, good. Fine. So now we go to the 17th chapter. Okay. So chapter 17, the divisions of faith. Okay, so 3 sections of the chapter. Faith, worship and foods and the modes from 1 to 10, 11 to 22. Sacrifices, austerities and charity in the modes, and 28, chanting Om Tat Sat purifies activities. So let's begin with the first section. First verse. Arjuna uvacha ye shastravidam utsrija yajante shradhayan vitaha tesham nishtha tu ka Krishna sattvam maho rajastamaha. Arjuna inquired, O Krishna, what is the situation of those who do not follow the principles of scripture, but worship according to their own imagination? Are they in goodness, in passion, or in ignorance? Please read the purport.
Krishna Karunavati, Prabhuji.
Perfect. In the 4th chapter, 39th verse, it is said that a person faithful to particular type of worship gradually becomes elevated to the stage of knowledge and attains the highest perfectional stage of peace and prosperity. In the 16th chapter, it is concluded that one who does not follow the principle laid down in the scripture is called an asura, demon, and who follows the scriptural injunction faithfully is called a deva or a demigod. Now, if one with the faith follows some rules which are not mentioned in the scriptural injunction, what is his position? This doubt of Arjuna's is to be cleared by Krishna. Are those who create some sort of God by selecting a human being and placing their faith in him, worshipping in goodness, patience, or ignorance. Do such persons attain the perfection stage of life? Is it possible for them to be situated in real knowledge and elevate themselves to the highest perfection stage? Do those who do not follow the rules and regulations of the scripture, but who have faith in something and worship gods and demigods and men attain success in their effort? Arjuna is putting this question to Krishna.
Okay, so Srila Prabhupada is paraphrasing Arjuna's question in different ways. But the basic question is this. So Arjuna is sort of repeating what Krishna said previous chapter, Ye Shastra Vidam Utsrijya. So the same words are being used. So they give up Shastra, but Yajante Shraddhayanvita. They have faith. They have some sort of faith. They have faith and they worship Yajante. They worship someone with faith. But who's that someone? That is not according to Shastra. Shastra Vidam Utsrijya. So if one has faith in someone, that someone may be some concoction. So as Prabhupada is saying, maybe some so-called Bhagwan, some sadhu, some Baba. So there's no end to that list, especially these days, isn't it? So many people have faith in and they worship. And maybe even Bollywood stars or cricket stars, maybe even they are worshipped. So Arjuna is asking, and they have faith. Oh, we are doing very good worship. They have faith. With faith, they are doing. Or sometimes it is found that there are some customs in a family which are just coming down since generations. And on the basis of that, there is some faith in that process, that ritual, and it's going on. So just like even Krishna, as a child, he asked Nanda Maharaj, when he saw Nanda Maharaj worshipping Indra every year, Indra Puja. So then Krishna also asked a similar question. Oh, well, what worship is this? Is it some social custom that's coming down since generations? Or is it there in the scriptures? What's it? What's it? And Nanda Maharaj says, oh, we have been doing it since generations. And so Arjuna is asking, what is the position of such people who have faith and with faith they're worshipping someone? So is that in Sattvagun, Rajagun, or Tamagun? So that is basically Arjuna's question. Okay, this is Baldev Vidabhushan's commentary on the verse. Somebody read.
Advait Gaur Prabhu. Ribol Advait Gaur Prabhu. Okay, Nishan Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji. Those who study the Vedas and with faith in the scriptures undertake activities according to its rules are called devas. Those who ignore the Vedas and act as they please without following Vedic rules are called demons or asuras. You have said this in the previous chapter. Now this is my question. Those who, having read and understood the Vedas, which are difficult to understand, give up the rules out of laziness or other reasons, and worship the Devas and others with faith born of local custom, are in what position? Are they considered among the godly and demonic types previously defined by ignoring scriptures but having faith and worship? Have they taken shelter of sattva, rajas, or tamas? The word aho is placed in the middle to indicate the two choices. Is it sattva or is it rajas and tamas?
Okay, so here he's saying that so there are some who ignore the Vedas and act as they please without following Vedic rules. Okay, those are demons. Okay, fine. So now he says those who, having read and understood the Vedas, which are difficult to understand, give up the rules out of laziness or other reasons. Okay, so that could be another reason also. Simply lazy. Okay, they know that such and such worship is to be done. This is what is authorized in scripture, but they're lazy to follow all the rules and regulations of scriptures. And so they just do it in their own custom or in their whimsical way. So therefore he says, and worship the devas and others with faith born of local custom. So that means they may worship the devas. They may worship the devas also, but it is not based on authority. It's not based on scriptures. Just like we see nowadays, people may worship even the devatas, like Durga Puja is there and Ganesh worship is there. But what scriptures are followed? So then it is all local customs. They're playing Bollywood music and doing all sorts of things. So it's just based on some local customs, that's all. Nothing from the scriptures. So that is what Arjuna is talking about here. So they're lazy. They think, oh, who's going to follow all those scriptural injunctions? So we just do something. So what is the result of such worship? That's what Arjuna is asking. So now Krishna begins his reply. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Trivida Bhavati Shraddha Dehinam Sa Svabhavaja Satviki Rajasi Chaiva Tamasi Chetitam Shrino. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, according to the modes of nature acquired by the embodied soul, one's faith can be of three kinds, in goodness, in passion, or in ignorance. Now hear about this. Okay, purport?
Anand Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu. Am I audible?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Those who know the rules and regulations of the scriptures, but out of laziness or indolence, give up following these rules and regulations are governed by the modes of material nature. According to their previous activities in the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance, they acquire a nature which is of a specific quality. The association of the living entity with the different modes of nature has been going on perpetually. Since the living entity is in contact with material nature, he acquires different types of mentality according to his association with the material modes. But this nature can be changed if one associates with a bona fide spiritual master and abides by his rules and the scriptures. Gradually, one can change his position from ignorance to goodness and from passion to goodness. The conclusion is that blind faith in a particular mode of nature cannot help a person become elevated to the perfectional stage. One has to consider carefully with intelligence in the association of a bona fide spiritual master. Thus, one can change his position to a higher mode of nature.
Okay, we'll read one more verse and then discuss. Third, Sattvanurupa sarvasya shraddha bhavati bharata shraddhamayoyam purusho yo yat shraddha sa eva saha. O son of Bharata, according to one's existence under the various modes of nature, one evolves a particular kind of faith. The living being is said to be of a particular faith according to the modes he has acquired. Purport?
Everyone has a particular type of faith, regardless of what he is, but his faith is considered good, passionate, or ignorant according to the nature he has acquired. Thus, according to his particular type of faith, one associates with certain persons. Now, the real fact is that every living being, as is stated in the 15th chapter, is originally a fragmental part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, one is originally transcendental to all the modes of material nature. But when one forgets his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and comes into contact with the material nature in conditional life, he generates his own position by association with the different varieties of material nature. The resultant artificial faith and existence are only material, although one may be conducted by some impression or some conception of life. Originally, he is nirguna or transcendental. Therefore, one has to become cleansed of the material contamination that he has acquired in order to regain his relationship with the Supreme Lord. That is the only path back without fear, Krishna consciousness. If one is situated in Krishna consciousness, then that path is guaranteed for his elevation to the perfectional stage. If one does not take to this path of self-realization, then he is surely to be conducted by the influence of the modes of nature. The word Shraddha or faith is very significant in this verse. Shraddha or faith originally comes out of the mode of goodness. One's faith may be in a demigod or some created god or some mental concoction. One's strong faith is supposed to be productive of works of material goodness. But in material condition life, no works are completely purified. They are mixed. They are not in pure goodness. Pure goodness is transcendental. In purified goodness, one can understand the real nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As long as one's faith is not completely in purified goodness, the faith is subject to contamination by any of the modes of material nature. The contaminated modes of material nature expands to the heart. Therefore, according to the position of the heart in contact with a particular mode of material nature, one's faith is established. It should be understood that if one's heart is in the mode of goodness, his faith is also in the mode of goodness. If his heart is in mode of passion, his faith is also in mode of passion. And if his heart is in mode of darkness, illusion, his faith is also thus contaminated. Thus, we find different types of faith in this world, and there are different types of religion due to different types of faith. The real principle of religious faith is situated in the mode of pure goodness, but because the heart is tainted, we find different types of religious principles. Thus, according to different types of faith, there are different kinds of worship.
Okay, so here in these two verses, so Krishna is basically explaining why there are different types of faith. And so the sum and substance of these two verses and the purports is that originally the jiva is pure, as Srila Prabhupada gives the common example that rainwater is originally pure. But as soon as the rainwater comes in contact with the earth, the rainwater becomes muddy. So similarly, the jiva originally is pure consciousness. So that's real faith. That's real faith and pure goodness, which is based on the Supreme Lord. That's real faith. But then that faith becomes contaminated by the three modes in this material worlds. And because of this influence of the three modes, then one develops different types of faith. So that is the basic point that is being told over here. So, okay, this is again Baldev Vedabhushan's commentary on the second verse. Okay, please read.
Prabhuji.
Are we reading the fourth verse?
No, Prabhuji, the commentary on the screen.
Okay. Those who study the Veda, being asked the Lord to speak, that faith by which one worships the Devas and other beings while giving up the rules of the scripture because of laziness or difficulties should be understood to arise from the virtuous and sinful impressions from previous lives, Swabhavaja. That faith is of three types arising from the states of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, for beginningless, unrelenting births of embodied souls in the beginningless contact with the three gunas of Prakriti. They do not have spiritual intelligence arising from the scripture taught by the devotees, which will allow them to change those impressions. Therefore, the three types of faith which arise from the impressions appear. Faith born from the scriptures is different. It brings about performance of actions only according to scriptural directions, not because of impressions of the three gunas.
Okay, so this, as we have been discussing even in the 13th chapter, so basically the sinful impressions are there from the previous life, and that's also due to the influence of the three modes. And then because of the influence of the modes, then there are these different types of faiths. So it's all based on swabhava. Swabhava means the nature, the influence from the previous lives, the impressions from the previous lives, which are also based upon the influence of the gunas, basically. And so therefore, and that has been going on since time immemorial. And since time immemorial, the jiva in the material world has been influenced by the three gunas. And so therefore, because of the influence of the three gunas, then he develops a certain type of faith, and that simply continues. And so therefore, then that continues life after life, and till the point one actually comes into the association of devotees, bona fide spiritual master, and therefore, at the end of the purport to the second verse, Prabhupada writes, but this nature can be changed if one associates with the bona fide spiritual master and abides by his rules and regulations. So that's the only way it can be changed. Otherwise, life after life, it simply goes on. And that's how Nitya Baddha, eternally conditioned in material worlds. And based upon the influence of those modes, then basically one has different types of faith. So this faith is not based upon scriptures. So this faith, what is being talked about here, is faith which is based upon the influence of the modes. Okay, this is, okay, commentary on the third verse. Go ahead.
Though the faith itself is a function of Sattva Guna, it becomes three types of faith for the embodied soul possessing an internal organ, whose very nature is to hold impressions. The internal organ, Sattvam, is composed of the three gunas, and corresponding to that, the faith of all living entities appears. The faith of the internal organ predominated by Sattva Guna is Sattvic. The internal organ predominated by Rajaguna is Rajasic. The internal organ predominated by Tamaguna is Tamasic. The ordinary person, Ayam Purushaha, a worshipper who has an object of worship, endowed with one of the three types of faith, Shraddhamayaha, will be faithful to one of the three respective types of objects, Devas, Yakshas, or Pretas. Yatta Shraddhaha. That worshipper, Sa, becomes endowed with the qualities of the deity worshipped, Sa Eva. The internal organ, or Antahkarana, refers to the subtle internal organ consisting of the mind, intelligence, false ego, and memory, Chitta.
Right, so basically it is the influence on the subtle body, as we were discussing in previous classes also, that the modes basically influence the subtle body. And so based upon the influence of the subtle body, then that that basically influences the faith. Okay. So yes, so the influence on the subtle body is coming from the previous life, and then based upon that, then the three types of faith is there basically. So the basic point in this discussion here is that it's all based upon the influence of the gunas that one's faith is developed. And then when we talk about transcendental faith in Guru and Shastra, so then that transcendental faith, that comes only in the association with devotees. Otherwise, the faith is simply based upon the influence of the three gunas. Okay, this is Prabhupada's lecture on these verses. Somebody read this?
Raghavendra Prabhuji.
Divisions of faith. So people are being controlled by the three kinds of material matter, and if they do not follow the Shastric injunction, then he will concoct, he will create something according to his position, either in the Tamoguna or Rajoguna or Sattvaguna. He is going on conducting himself under the influence of the same modes of nature. But those means superficially doing something in the Tamoguna. He will not be successful. He will not be successful. Yaha Shastra Vidhim Usrajya Vartate Kamakarata.
Okay, so if he remains in the lower modes, then obviously he is not going to be successful. So, okay, so, and therefore, as Prabhupada writes towards the end of his purport, he says that different types of faith, and therefore there are different types of religion due to different types of faith. So then based upon that faith, then people are worshipping different personalities, different objects. So all that is basically because of the influence of the three modes. Okay, another of Prabhupada's lecture.
Mallikarjun Prabhuji.
Therefore, Krishna says here, Trividha bhavati shraddha, dehinam sa swabhavaja. If one is cultivating his life like hogs and cats and dogs, the behavior is also like that and remaining in that position. So his faith and one who is advanced, who is worshipping deity and having 3 times bath and chanting mantras, Hare Krishna, they are not equal. That is not possible because one is situated in the Sattva Guna and the other is situated in Tamo Guna. Although the Tamo Gunas, the persons who are in the darkness of knowledge, they have got their faith. It is not that they have no faith. They have got faith. But that faith is in the lowest status of life. That faith will not help him for self-realization. Sorry, spiritual realization.
Yeah, so they also have faith. So everyone has got some faith. But then when it is influenced by the lower modes, then that will not help in spiritual realization. Then they simply remain bound in this material worlds. Okay, fine. So now he's talking about worship in the three modes. Okay, so let's go to the 4th verse. Yajante satvika devan yaksha rakshamsi rajasaha pretan bhuta ganam shanye yajante tamasa jana. Men in the mode of goodness worship the demigods. Those in the mode of passion worship the demons. And those in the mode of ignorance worship ghosts and spirits. Okay, read the first paragraph of the purport.
Advait Gaur Prabhuji.
Purport. In this verse, the Supreme Personality of Godhead describes different kinds of worshippers according to their external activities. According to scriptural injunction, only the Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipable, but those who are not very conversant with or faithful to the scriptural injunctions worship different objects according to their specific situations in the modes of material nature. Those who are situated in goodness generally worship the demigods. The demigods include Brahma, Shiva, and others, such as Indra, Chandra, and the sun god. There are various demigods. Those in goodness worship a particular demigod for a particular purpose. Similarly, those who are in the mode of passion worship the demons. We recall that during the Second World War, a man in Calcutta worshipped Hitler because thanks to that war, he had amassed a large amount of wealth by dealing in the black market. Similarly, those in the modes of passion and ignorance generally select a powerful man to be God. They think that anyone can be worshipped as God and that the same results will be obtained.
Okay, so that's how, because of the different faiths, then they worship different people. So usually in goodness, they worship the devatas, But again, as we were discussing previously also, that even within that, there are different categories because even goodness doesn't remain pure. So the goodness also gets contaminated by passion and ignorance. And so therefore, then even amongst worship of the devatas, we find there are different categories. Like we find the demons, they are worshipping Lord Shiva. Like there was this Vritrasur who was cutting parts of his flesh and offering it in the fire. And so he's worshipping Lord Shiva, but then it's tamasic, totally tamasic. So even within the worship of the devatas, so therefore Prabhupada says generally those in goodness worship devatas. So, but then even that may be contaminated by the lower modes, and then we find all these different categories even within the worship of the devatas. And then those who are in passion, then even they may worship devatas sometimes, but then it's mainly for material benedictions, or as it's being mentioned here, they may simply worship some powerful person. They make a human being into God and they worship that person. And then those who are in the mode of ignorance, as Prabhupada says, and they worship ghosts, pretas, and all that type of horrible worship. So that's how there are different categories of worship based upon the influence of the modes. Okay, so in this way, they may perform different austerities and penances. Okay, we go to the next verse. Ashastra vihitam goram tapyante ye tapojanaha dambahangkar sanyukta kamaraga balanvitaha karshayanta sharirastham bhutagramam acetasaha mam chaivanta sharirastham tan vityasura nishayan. Those who undergo severe austerities and penances not recommended in scriptures, performing them out of pride and egoism, who are impelled by lust and attachment, who are foolish, and who torture the material elements of the body, as well as the supersoul dwelling within, are to be known as demons. Okay, read the purport.
Krishna Mohan Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, am I audible Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji, please read.
There are persons who manufacture modes of austerity and penance which are not mentioned in the scriptural injunctions. For instance, fasting for some ulterior purpose, such as to promote a purely political end, is not mentioned in the scriptural directions. The scriptures recommend fasting for spiritual advancement, not for some political end or social purpose. Persons who take to such austerities are, according to Bhagavad Gita, certainly demoniac. Their acts are against scriptural injunctions and are not beneficial for the people in general. Actually, they act out of pride, false ego, lust, and attachment for material enjoyment. By such activities, not only is the combination of material elements of which the body is constructed disturbed, but also the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself living within the body. Such unauthorized fasting or austerities for some political end are certainly very disturbing to others. They are not mentioned in the Vedic literature. A demoniac person may think that he can force his enemy or other parties to comply with his desire by this method. But sometimes one dies by fasting. These acts are not approved by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he says that who engage in them are demons. Such demonstrations are insults to the Supreme Personality of Godhead because they are enacted in disobedience to the Vedic scriptural injunctions. The word achetasaha is significant in this connection. Persons of normal mental condition must obey the scriptural injunctions. Those who are not in such a position neglect and disobey the scriptures and manufacture their own way of austerities and penances. One should always remember the ultimate end of the demonic people as described in the previous chapter. The Lord forces them to take birth in the wombs of demoniac persons Consequently, they will live by demonic principles life after life without knowing their relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If, however, such persons are fortunate enough to be guided by a spiritual master who can direct them to the path of Vedic wisdom, they can get out of this entanglement and ultimately achieve the supreme goal. Hare Krishna.
Yes, so such demonic people, so they worship in their own way, and they concoct also what austerities and penances to do, what fasting to do. So everything is concocted. Hmm? So this is the influence of the lower modes. As Prabhupada says, they are fasting, they fast for some political reasons, social reasons. So the whole thing is concocted, and they act out of damba and ahankar. So out of pride for making a big show and showing to the public how they are austere and things like that, or achieving some political. And we know all these things, they happen in material affairs and politics and so on. So, as Prabhupada says, such unauthorized fasting austerities for some political end are certainly very disturbing to others. And it said that even the Supreme Lord Karshayanta Sharirastham Bhutagramam Achetasa Mam. So Krishna is saying Mam. So such people even cause disturbance to me, the Supreme Lord. So even the super soul gets disturbed. Of course, that disturbance is not due to some physical pain or something like that. But that disturbance is seeing the pathetic condition of the demon or the person who is performing all these unauthorized activities. So even the Lord feels pity for them. And so he's also disturbed. Oh, what this fellow is doing. So that's how the super soul is also disturbed. And so those who are in the lower modes, they don't follow scriptural injunctions and they concoct all these things. They disturb themselves, they disturb others. So we see even in politics, somebody is fasting, so many others get disturbed. And so these are all the activities of demoniac people, those who are influenced by the lower modes. So as far as we are concerned, the important lesson to learn is that whatever we do must not be concocted. Everything must be sanctioned, everything must be authorized by Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. So that is the way we should be functioning. And therefore, Prabhupada ends the purport by saying, if, however, such persons are fortunate enough to be guided by a spiritual master who can direct them to the path of Vedic wisdom, they can get out of the impact. So that's the important point. So we are fortunate that we have come in contact with Srila Prabhupada, with ISKCON, and we have all these books, the scriptures, so we must take advantage of all these facilities that we have and lead a life according to the scriptures. Now, in the next 4 verses, Krishna is speaking about food in the 3 modes, ahar in the 3 modes. 7th verse. Aharastu api sarvasya trividho bhavati priyaha yajñas tapastata danam tesham vedam imam shrinu. Even the food each person prefers of 3 kinds according to the 3 modes of material nature. The same is true of sacrifices, austerity, and charity. Now here are the distinctions between them. So he's just sort of summarizing as to what he's going to speak about. 8. Ayu sattva balarogya sukha priti vivardhanaha rasya snigdha stira ridhya ahara sattvika priya. Foods dear to those in the mode of goodness increase the duration of life, purify one's existence, and give strength, health, happiness, and satisfaction. Such foods are juicy, fatty, wholesome, and pleasing to the heart. So that's Sattvic Ahar. 9. Katvam lavanatyushna tikshna ruksha vidahinaha ahara rajasasyeshta dukkha shoka maya prada. Foods that are too bitter, too sour, salty, hot, pungent, dry, and burning are dear to those in the mode of passion. Such foods cause distress, misery, and disease. 10. Yatayamam gatarasam puti paryushitam chayat uchishtam api chamedhyam bhojanam tamasapriyam. Food prepared more than 3 hours before being eaten, food that is tasteless, decomposed, and putrid, and food consisting of remnants and untouchable things is dear to those in the mode of darkness. So Prabhupada is giving a purport which which covers all the three types of foods. So somebody read the purport, please.
Saurabh Prabhuji.
The purpose of food is to increase the duration of life, purify the mind, and aid bodily strength. This is its only purpose. In the past, great authorities selected those foods that best aid health and increase life's duration, such as milk products, sugar, rice, wheat, fruits, and vegetables. These foods are very dear to those in the mode of goodness. Some other foods, such as baked corn and molasses, while not very palatable in themselves, can be made pleasant when mixed with milk or other foods. They are then in the mode of goodness. All these foods are pure by nature. They are quite distinct from untouchable things like meat and liquor. Fatty foods, as mentioned in the 8th verse, have no connection with animal fat obtained by slaughter. Animal fat is available in the form of milk, which is the most wonderful of all foods. Milk, butter, cheese, and similar products give animal fat in a form which rules out any need for the killing of innocent creatures. It is only through brute mentality that this killing goes on. The civilized method of obtaining needed fat is by milk. Slaughter is the way of subhumans. Protein is amply available through split peas, dal, whole wheat, etc. Foods in the mode of passion, which is bitter, too salty, or too hot, or overly mixed with red pepper, cause misery by reducing the mucus in the stomach, leading to disease. Foods in the mode of ignorance and darkness are essentially those that are not fresh. Any food cooked more than 3 hours before it is eaten, except prasadam, food offered to the Lord, is considered to be in the mode of darkness because they are decomposing. Such foods give a bad odor, which often attracts people in this mode but repulses those in the mode of goodness. Remnants of food may be eaten only when they are part of a meal that was first offered to the Supreme Lord or first eaten by saintly persons, especially the spiritual master. Otherwise, the remnants of food are considered to be in the mode of darkness, and they increase infection or disease. Such foodstuffs, although very palatable to persons in the mode of darkness, are neither liked nor even touched by those in the mode of goodness. The best food is the remnants of what is offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Lord says that he accepts preparations of vegetables, flour, and milk when offered with devotion. Patram pushpam phalam toyam. Of course, devotion and love are the chief things which the Supreme Personality of Godhead accepts. But it is also mentioned that the prasadam should be prepared in a particular way. Any food prepared by the injunctions of the scripture and offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead can be taken even if prepared long, long ago, because such food is transcendental. Therefore, to make food antiseptic, eatable, and palatable for all persons, one should offer food to the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Okay. So we'll read a few commentaries on these verses. These are by Vishwanath Thakur. Somebody read this?
Vrinda.
It is well known that sattvic foods increase the lifespan human. They also increase strength of
Will.
sattva, as well as physical strength, freedom from disease, helplessness, happiness, and delightfulness in eating them. The food should be tasty or juicy. Rasam. Jaggery has taste but is coarse or dry. Sattvic food should thus be mild with oil. Snigdha. The form of milk, though tasty and mild, is insubstantial.
Insubstantial.
Sattvic food should be substantial with long-lasting effect in the body. Sthira. Jackfruit and other items are sweet, mild, and substantial, but are not beneficial to the stomach and other organs. Sattvic food should thus also be beneficial to the heart, stomach, and other organs, hridya as well. Hridya as well.
Okay, that's about sattvic foods. Okay, continue.
Thus, it is understood that foods such as rice, wheat, other grains, milk, and sugar are dear to the Sattvic people because they have all four of the above mentioned qualities. As those foods are dear to them, the foods are understood to be Sattvic. However, even if foods has those four qualities, if it is impure, the Sattvic food do not like it. The Sattvic people do not like it. Thus, purity should be added as a quality of Sattvic food. One should compare the description of tamasic food mentioned later. The adjective used to describe tamasic food is amidya, ritually impure, not to be offered in sacrifice.
Okay, somebody else can read. Now this is about Rajasic foods.
Okay, I will read. In this list, the adjective extremely should be added to each quality. Very bitter food, katu, means such food as neem. Very sour, very salty, and very hot foods are well known. Very sharp foods, tikshna, are turmeric root and other items, or pepper. Very drying foods, ruksha, are hing and kodrava. Burning foods, vidahina, are those that cause internal heat, such as burned chickpeas. These cause suffering, dukkha, lamentation, shok, and disease, amayam. The word suffering here refers to suffering when eating, causing pain to the tongue, throat, or other organ. Lamentation means afterward. In the future, those foods cause despair. Amaya means disease.
And finally, the tamasic foods.
Yata yamam means food which has remained 3 hours, yamam, after cooking, or in other words, that which has become cold after cooking. Gatarasam means food from which the neutral taste is missing.
Natural taste.
From which the natural taste is missing or has been extracted, or such items as the skin and seed of the ripe mango. Puti means bad smelling. Paryushitam means overripe. Uchishtam refers to the leftovers other than that from the guru or other similar persons. Amedyam means inedible items such as kalanja. From reviewing the list of foods, one should conclude that those interested in their own welfare should partake of sattvic foods. The Vaishnavas, however, reject any food not offered to the Lord, even if it is sattvic food. Food offered to the Lord is dear to the devotees who are beyond the gunas. This is understood from the Bhagavatam.
Okay, fine. So that's about food in the 3 modes. So we will continue our discussions tomorrow. So we'll further discuss something about these foods and then go through the rest of the chapter. All right?
Okay, Prabhuji. We have 2 questions. We'll take those tomorrow then. Okay.
Yeah, we'll take tomorrow. It's time up now.
Yes.
Prabhuji, one small, this one for clarification too. So this, we are going to announce this NOD module. So what is the pre-qualification that we should set to? Like anyone can join being it independent module, or you want them to have some background in the other
See, of course, it's best you ask the Mayapur Institute.
Okay.
But in my understanding, usually we take a fixed number of students at the beginning of a course for all the modules.
Okay.
So this is the normal system which is followed everywhere. Mayapur Institute, Vrinda, everywhere that's the system. There's a certain fixed number of students who attend all the various modules throughout, and no one new is taken in between. That is the usual system. But still, if you want to clarify, you can clarify with the Mayapur Institute.
Okay, Prabhuji. Fine, Prabhuji.
All right.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Samved Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare
Dando
Krishna.
Pranam Prabhuji, Dando Pranam.
Dando Pranam.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you very
Hare Krishna,
much.
Prabhuji. Dandavat
Dandavat
Pranam.
Pranam, Prabhuji.
Krishna. Hare
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.